Welcome to the Friday Matinee on your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS. I'm George Cummings, and you are, madam?
I am Wendy Aguilar.
Wendy Aguilar.
That's me.
The world-famous news anchor.
World traveler.
And world traveler. You've been around lately. You just came back from NYC.
Yes.
By way of Guatemala.
Yes, indeed.
And you're heading off to San Francisco.
Yes, I am headed to San Francisco
in
next
between exchanging passport information, you are here hanging out with us.
And I am. And I'm loving it.
And filling in for T, by the way, who is off on a tropical island. And if she's listening right now.
Oh, she's traveling too. There you go.
She's out somewhere. And if she's listening now, she should not be enjoying her vacation and
Fabulous.
not trying to work. I know that you're kind of been on the news side of things. I've been on that one side of the camera, although I tell you, it is not an easy trick breaking into Hollywood. So I have more fun doing stage plays and things as I get it. Radio is 5 minutes away from my house. But I'm telling you, not easy breaking into the business.
It's definitely not an easy thing to do.
Not easy breaking into the business, especially when you have come from somewhere else to move to the big, wonderful, la-la land, Tinseltown known as Hollywood and try and break in here.
That is correct.
And but we have someone who's done it to a fabulous degree. He is also, aside from being an actor for many, many, many years, and always posting he's on his way to an audition, so obviously he's got a good agent, and he's
got it going on.
And he also has a show here on KHTS as well, and he has I think there's a cumulative about 15,000 pounds that have been lost here at KHTS thanks to him.
He's responsible for getting me in shape too.
That's right. Welcome to the program, Real Andrews.
Oh, glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Just kick the interns underneath. They kind of. So this is, first of all, you come from, if I'm not mistaken, Canada. Am I right?
Yes, sir. North Vancouver, BC.
And I'll tell you, for coming from another country, your English is very good, sir. Just want to tell you. But let's talk a little bit about this, because you come from Vancouver, BC. Did you do any acting up there when you were younger, or did you just decide to, I'm gonna drop everything and move to LA?
No, actually, George, I was the jock. I never had any aspirations to act or anything. As a matter of fact, I actually, at the time, I was the jock and my girlfriend was the drama queen. And I thought what she was doing was weird, but, you know, the way it really happened is one day when Vancouver was becoming Hollywood North or West or whatever, when they were starting to break up there and stuff, they were starting to, at that time also, there wasn't a lot of African-American talent in film. Mr. Van Peebles was one of the working ones back then, and his son Mario Van Peebles. You know, the NAACP was causing a roar, saying we want more color in film and stuff. So Hollywood decided at that point to make that move, but their move was to not hire real dark African Americans, to hire lighter skinned African Americans. So it was kind of a blessing for me back then at the time. And what happened is they came into town, they were going to do a movie called Harry Tracy Last Desperado, and they needed a young African American kid to play a guy in a train box, you know, a few lines here and there. And there wasn't a lot of us, so they actually went around to the high schools. They found 3 of us. I auditioned, and I got the part, and the rest was history.
Well, that's pretty lucky, because I tell you, there are people pounding the streets for years and years and years who never get that kind of break. Now, this was up in Canada, right?
Yeah, in Vancouver, yeah.
So it just kind of so happened that the changing of the times, I like that, where we don't want dark-skinned African Americans. We need to kind of ease the audience into the fact that we have African Americans in the world, or black people in the world. I think that's funny. I mean, and not ha-ha, but, you know, interesting. So that was your start. That was the big push.
Well, that was the big push, and it was funny, because I'll tell you, when I landed that part, so they wanted to hire and here, let me back up. So recently, my mom found a box. She keeps everything. You love moms, because I'm glad she did. Back then, I wouldn't have, but when you look back, oh, it's so cool. So I'm going through, and my very first contract was this movie. She had the original contract. She had my first paycheck. She had the original call sheet.
Wow.
And in 1981, so we're not going back that far, it said Rael, well, my name used to be Johnson before I changed, but it said Rael Johnson, Black Boy.
Wow.
That's what it said. It said Black Boy on the contract. It said Black Boy on the call sheet. And we know that wouldn't fly today.
Definitely not.
But,
not unless your character's name was Black Boy.
Yeah. And I guess it was. But I remember sitting in the makeup chair, if you can imagine this. I'm in the makeup chair, and they're making me darker. because I wasn't black enough. So now they've hired this light-skinned guy to play an African-American person, but now they're making him darker because he's not black enough for the part. And in walks this guy, and they ask me to stand up next to him. So I stand up next to him, and they go, yeah, that'll work. And an hour and a half later, in comes that guy. He's now black with an afro, because I had hair back then. He was going to be my stunt double.
Wow.
So another thing that would never happen today. But the great news was his name was Jacob Rupp, and him and me became very close. Like I said, I was the jock. I was into sports. And he, at that time, because obviously there was no African-American stuntman in Canada, that's why he was, getting colored and playing me. He said, hey, you know what? You could make a lot of money doing this. You interested in doing stunts? We'll train you. And that's kind of how I started. I became the first African-American stuntman.
So can you throw yourself through the window?
Yeah,
Okay.
I used to do all that stuff.
Let me get my camera.
Yeah, I don't think our owners would be very happy about
Usually
that.
usually it's a breakaway window.
Oh, that's the trick. That's the trick.
Yeah, I will tell you a funny story though. Once they have a breakaway window. When you go through the window, there's a guy. He's got a charge and he hits it, and they times it just as you hit the window, and it blows up and you go through it. I remember doing a stunt with a guy, and it was you know what it was? It was RoboCop. It was RoboCop 1, and there was a scene, if you remember, in the thing, and he comes crashing through the front window, and that's a big deal. A lot of special effects and everything. The guy came running up to the window. He blew the window, and it didn't break, and he went.
Bam.
Oh,
and just
ouch.
There's always that thing, especially with those special effects. I did one film scene where I was squibbed, and I'm like, and all I had to do was fall backwards, and I'm like, don't screw this up, because then they're gonna blow the squibs, and I'm gonna have to find new clothes, because that stuff blows you apart. I mean, it doesn't mess around. So yeah, it's always like, what's gonna happen? Am I gonna get this right? Am I gonna get this right? So yeah, it's interesting. So you started out and doing stunts up there then?
Yeah, I played every bad boy, because I was black, and the black guys always did the bad things. So if they needed a robber, a rapist, a drug dealer, a pimp, or whatever, and then they were always getting blown up or shot. So I played a lot of parts. I got killed a lot.
Now it's always interesting, and you mentioned Mr. Van Peebles, and he put out a really good documentary about African Americans in film throughout history, and how it's that kind of irony, and you want the money, you're an actor, it's your craft, and yet you end up resorting to these roles that perpetuate stereotypes. How did that make you feel?
Back then it was one of those things where I was young. I just wanted to be famous. I wanted to be rich. My mindset was different than it is now. So I really didn't care. I would kind of do anything. I didn't have morals. I didn't have integrity. Just keeping it real. I just didn't, dude. I did stuff that I hope those things never ever come up. I would, if I could find them and burn the last one, I would, looking back. But that was a sign of the times, and you do what you do. Now I'm very selective what I do. I'm not going to do a project that has a lot of N-words in it. I don't do projects that has a lot of profanity in it unless it's justified. There's certain roles I won't play, but I'm also in the position, thank gosh, from where I am, that I can choose the parts I want. It's a tough one, you gotta say, because if you're a struggling actor, you got to do everything you can.
And that's the thing. And I know so many people they'll just do anything for that role. And even if it's a non-union sitting there, and they'll work 12 hours for $100 a day just in hopes that they'll get there. Or people who have broken through and yet they're back to square one. So that's what we're talking about. But I love talking about this industry here, aside from, movie stars and people like yourself, and talk about the industry, is also talk about the reality of the business. And so that we can kind of dissipate the fantasy and get people, instead of chasing the dream, to follow the dream. So let's skip forward. Okay, so Canada, how did you end up here in beautiful Santa Clarita by way of doing soaps and everything else? I looked at your IMDb page. I didn't even realize that until you had posted something, I think it was Throwback Thursday, which was an old opening to one of the soap operas. And that's not a trick. That's not an easy gig either.
No, the soap operas was awesome. I actually loved it. How I got from Vancouver to to LA. I'm the kind of guy, I'm an all-in guy. I always have been an all-in guy. There was a process. My original dream was to be an Olympic sprinter, or to make the 84 Olympics as a sprinter. That was my way out. You know, I thought if I could win a gold medal, I could get commercial campaigns and I'd make a lot of money, and that was my dream and really the reason I was doing it. Pulled my hamstring at 13. Then this movie business started showing up. And then I remember I was sitting there one day going, you know what, I'm starting to make a lot of money doing this. I may or may not make it to the Olympics, and if I do, I may or not. So I chose to change careers or dreams instantly, and I was all in. At that point I said, well, if I'm going to do this, because I'd never had any acting training. I mean, I'd never done anything, you know. I was just working because I was working,
following your instincts.
So I said, but if I'm going to do this like I was doing track for the past many years of my life, working extra hours every day, I'm going to get all in. So next thing was to move to Hollywood, get in the classes, get around the best of the best and learn from the best of the best. And I jumped on a plane and got out here, and I was a struggling actor for, or like to, as we say that, George, I was an overnight success of 13 years.
Yeah.
So I struggled for 13 years.
Exactly. So, and that's the thing. You might get bits, as I talk about, people get bits and pieces, or they think it's their big break, but then after that, I know plenty of people who have been on major TV shows and good roles. You know, it wasn't just day player stuff. They were featured for the week of the 6-day shooting schedule that they usually shoot in 4 days, you know, and thought it was that, you know. A friend of mine that was in the movie, it was the sports movie with Brad Pitt and Jonah Hill. He had a really good scene as a TSA agent. Thought it was going to be his big break, cutting room floor. You know, so those are the things you got to think about. So, 13 years. So, tell me about the soaps. How'd you end up there?
Well, the soaps it's funny. Like I said, I struggled for 13 years. Went through all kind of crazy stuff. You know, fell into the trap of Hollywood and just got crazy. So I was in a dark place for a long time, like living the life that you hear about in Hollywood, which I wouldn't recommend for anybody. But finally, after 13 years, I literally booked General Hospital and Soldiers of Fortune within 1 week.
Wow.
Yeah, so nothing for 13 years, just struggling. I remember not even having 25 cents when it was 25 cents for a stamp to send a postcard home to my mom. I mean, I remember, struggling. You know, I want people to understand, if you're going to become an actor, you better be something you're passionate. Don't become an actor to be rich or famous.
Definitely.
You better be passionate about it, because it's a lot of work. I remember coming home, just to give this was when it was at how hard it was. I remember coming home one night after auditioning all day, taking a 2.5-hour bus ride home. I had 2 pieces of bread, some peanut butter, and a banana in my apartment, and I was thinking about it the whole way home. I lived in this disgusting apartment with cockroaches, and the floor was sticky and everything. I got home, I made this sandwich, and as I was getting ready to put it together, it fell face first on the floor, on that disgusting floor. And I remember having that moment where I was looking at it going, no, and then I was like, you know what?
5-second rule.
Boom, I'm hungry, I ate it. So I got that role, General Hospital, and I was a huge GH fan. So I was really excited. I'll never forget the first day, because I was in awe. I was at Laura and Luke's wedding, all that stuff, and I walk in, and the very first person I met was Maurice Bernard.
Wow.
Yeah, and it was an instant connection. Everybody was really cool to me. They were great. They open arms, but I went to hug him like everybody else, and he pushed my hand aside. He shook my hand. He said, "I'm looking forward to working with you, man."
Good.
Yeah.
Now the soaps that's almost like guerrilla acting there, because you don't, not a whole lot of second chances and stuff like that. It really is, you got to be prepared and hit the ground running. Am I not mistaken about that?
100 pages a day.
100 pages a day.
100 pages a day. You'd be lucky if you get 2 takes. So if you don't know your stuff, you won't be coming back. They don't have time to, So, whereas a movie, we might do 1/8 of a page in 2 weeks. We do 100 pages a day.
A day.
Wow.
And when you're a top storyline, you're most of those pages. And sometimes you'll learn your stuff the night before. You come in the morning, and there's new pages under your door, and they've rewritten them.
And you have to know those lines when you hit the stage or hit your mark.
Yeah, you need to know your lines. Things like And then you're going to work with actors like I have a photographic memory or developed it. Maurice you're going to get people like me and Maurice who are sticklers, and we're going to eat you alive, dude. If you do show up and you don't know your stuff, we do not have no patience for you or no time. And we'll pick it. You know how actors are. If I notice you not got your stuff, if you're working hard, I'm going to help you. But if you show up and you're going to waste my time and affect my performance, I'm going to eat you alive.
Exactly.
And it's not a fun place to be.
Exactly.
Don't want to be there.
That's true. And so, but
Learn your lines.
And so you are regularly go out on audition. Anything coming up by any chance?
I actually going to be bolting out of right here and going to one. I got one at 2. I got another one tomorrow. I have an amazing manager. And,
obviously, because you're always posting. You're heading somewhere.
I see it every day.
Yeah, and that's the key. You know, I got blessed. It actually a funny story. She happened to be my very first agent in Hollywood, had an assistant. I remember meeting her. She was the one I signed my contracts with, and that is now my manager.
That's amazing.
30-something years later.
That is great.
Time flies when you're having fun.
So moving forward, though, so you the dark place, we've probably all been there. Those wild, wacky 80s, as it were. And shifting gears, though, because not only have you kind of got it within yourself to push forward and get your career together, but now you are out there lifting other people up.
Yeah.
And you not only do you have a radio show, but I know you're also, of course, as we can attest, by Wendy, and we have Tom Nobili. Tom, who comes in every day, ever since he's started working there a few years ago. He gives me the high sign or maybe a, hey, how's it going? And him and Andrew, and I notice both of them over the past several months are getting smaller and smaller. And also the thing too, Rial, is their attitudes are insanely awesome. Not that they weren't before, but there is such a difference in, like, the spark in their step. Love is in the air, And I think, well, I don't know about that, guys, but whatever you guys do back there is on your own. But seriously, and so they are, and Wendy, of course, too, and Kyle Jellings, our Jelly Man, is who's no longer Jelly. Yeah,
you cannot call him Jelly Man.
Well, it's not Jelly Man because of his jelly
personality.
His jelly personality. But you're right, Jelly Man in name only. And these are things. When did you start focusing on the motivational stuff and the exercise and just bringing people up to the level so they can achieve things? You call it building champions.
Yes. Oh, well, I actually started training because that's always been part of me. I've been physical. And I don't know if you remember Body by Jake, the two Jakes? They were the original trainers. They started that whole thing. They were making $300 an hour. And then everybody and their mother, if they looked good, if they had a six-pack, if they were an athlete, if they bodybuilder, they all instantly became trainers overnight. And I remember working out in the gym and watching these people take money from these people on their cell phone, eating sandwiches, not paying attention, and I said, that's ridiculous. I said, I'm going to become a trainer, and I'm going to help people to be who they, want to be, and give them the respect they need. It just made me infurious, that kind of stuff. And that's why I originally became a trainer. And then I went on to own 3 gyms, just very passionate about helping people be everything that they, what I believe were created to be, because most of them don't have that belief in themselves. And then along the way, I noticed that, I noticed my gift. Like, clients would come up to me and they'd say, you know what, Coach? I went bike riding this weekend and I climbed that hill I've always wanted to climb, and I heard your voice in my head. Or, Coach, I finally did a marathon and I heard your voice in my head. And that's when I came up with the 24/7 Success Coach, because I realized that my niche was actually helping people to believe in themselves and in putting power in them through the word. So that's where I kind of transitioned into that. And I actually walked away from acting for a while because I thought, when I traveled down to Alabama, and I'd have people come up to me, big General Hospital fans, and they would say, hey, can I get your autograph and get your picture? They'd be really excited. And then they'd say, hey, listen, I've read an article. Can I ask you a question? I say, yeah, I read an article in Soaps and Depths or one of those magazines, said that you're a Christian. And I'd go, yeah. So how do you justify doing the soap? And it started to plant seeds into me, not so much just the Christian thing, but I realized I wasn't changing anybody's life. with acting. And I sort of lost the passion for it because it wasn't about anybody but me. And that's why I walked away from it and I started changing people's lives through fitness and health. And recently I just felt the calling to go back to acting, to be on a bigger platform so I could change more lives.
He really does that. I hear him in my mind all the time. Coach, what would Coach say about this? What would Coach say about that? Keep going, Wendy.
Well, Wendy and I worked together yesterday. I did a little bit of a photo session with her, and she was excited.
Photos,
she was excited that, well, it's not about me, but he was telling what
was
she was
that
excited
the one
about.
where you were like on a chair and you had like, what were you?
Oh,
like,
wait,
the bed.
Yes.
Oh, okay, that looked pretty good.
But
it gets better.
What I'm getting at though is that bringing it back around is that Wendy had this dress. Oh, the zip wasn't here; it's here. But that you were excited that you could fit
the
back
red
into.
dress.
And
yes, I had 2 red dresses and I couldn't fit into them, and I still had him hanging in my closet and looking at him every single day. It's gonna happen. It's gonna happen. And thank you for training me and inspiring me. And I've been working so hard, and now they fit. And just, it's not only about putting on that dress, it's about feeling empowered. I did this. I look good. I feel good. So it's really changed my life.
It's a dual thing there, because it's not, I mean, a lot of people don't realize that being able to lose that weight and be able to fit into that thing, or making sure you can throw out all your fat clothes or whatever. There's also that mental aspect to it.
It means so much more,
and especially the guys in the back, Tom and Andrew, that really have a totally different perspective now, it seems like.
And then you start to see other people following through and coming to work out and asking,
the
what
example
are you doing?
that they're
oh my God,
doing.
Look at your legs.
Lead by example. That's perfect.
Yes.
Now, your radio show, Getting Real.
Getting Real, yeah.
With Real. That is on
Wednesdays at 1 p.m. Getting Real with my good buddy Alex Urbina and me. We do it together, and I'm excited about that because I bring like the physical motivation, inspiration, and Alex brings the intellectual, emotional, spiritual, and together we're a really great team.
And Alex does bring that kind of the idea of the unconscious mind and all the stuff that bubbles around in there you don't even realize happen, that affects your psyche and the way you interact with other people. So Getting Real with Real, Wednesdays at 1 o'clock, and Alex Urbina, also your co-host. And what can we see you in out on the screens somewhere? Anything soon come up? Or
well, I have my series The Bay that comes up. We'll be shooting a new series of that. We won an Emmy for that last year, and as you know, it's pilot season right now. I have a film coming up. I'm going to shoot at the end of this month, which is what I'm growing all this facial hair for. It's actually one of those roles. It actually has a lot of profanity in it, but the quality and the character of the script is powerful. And when I read that, I actually kind of joked, but not, you know what I mean? I said, I spent 5.5 years in Hollywood studying for this role, so I could bring it. And when I auditioned, the director-producer said, I can see that you really did spend 5.5 years studying for
every
this
day
role.
is a dress rehearsal for the rest of your life. What's the one thing you would tell, let's say someone's stepping off the bus from Farmington, New Mexico, and deciding they want to crack it into the world? What's the one thing you would tell that person if they want to try and make it in the industry?
That's perfect. I actually had a quote yesterday. Success, most people miss their success because it shows up in overalls and looks like hard work. It's hard work, I mean, you're going to work hard. I'd say don't think it's just... Actually, I got to tell 2 or 3 things because there were a couple mistakes that I made, and I want to make sure they don't make the mistake. I had this in my head that if I took what I called a menial job, I failed, because that was my mindset. So I really struggled, like you heard. I'm bad because I wouldn't do another job, because that meant I gave up. Don't do that. Get yourself another job. Do a part-time job so you can take that stress off yourself, so you can focus on your craft, and submerge yourself in classes, all that stuff. The other thing, which is huge, that I'd say, I did say, and you're a struggling actor or you want to get it, I get that, but don't cross the line to those parts of nudity, sleeping with somebody to get a part, all those things, because it's not going to pay you. That's not going to get you the job. I promise you, I've never, ever heard of a story where it paid off.
Oh, exactly. Well, thank you, Real, so much for stopping by. And again, Getting Real with Real and Alex, Wednesdays at 1 o'clock. Alex out there on the big and small screens. Alex, actually, I should say Real. Maybe Alex too someday. I don't know. We'll see what happens. Real on the big and small screens. And check out his IMDb page. Real is in the spelled like real, R-E-A-L, Andrews, and you can see all his good stuff there. IMDb.com. We will be back with more right after this. The Friday Matinee on your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS.